Hi, my name is Damon Maradi, and I'm with Sound Off Signal. Today we're covering two generations of the bluePRINT remote node. We're specifically going to be covering the differences of how to hook them up in programming. By the end of this video, you should have an understanding of how to hook up each type, and subsequently how to retrofit a Gen 2 remote node into a Gen 1 system. We're going to be using this harness for both installation types. I've shortened the harness so it's easier to work with and tied off all the input and output wires since we don't need those for today's demonstration. We'll just be using these two wires here for the demonstration. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the Gen 1 remote node. So let me pull this one off the screen. Gen 1 remote nodes have a power and ground lug on them, which are connected using the included ring terminals. When you plug in the harness, you're going to use only these two wires for data and programming. The yellow wire connects to the central controller or 500 controller, LIN data, and the white-black wire is the address ID select wire. Normally, the address select wire is provided power to advance the remote node's ID. Alright, so let's demonstrate this by powering up the unit. So now you can see that we are powered up. You can see our communication LED at the top of the screen. It's on steady. And the LED address light is just below that, and it's blinking to indicate which ID it's currently set to. In this case, it's currently set to ID number 1. This is based on the number of flashes coming from that LED. To advance the ID on a Gen 1 remote node, all you have to do is take this wire and hold it down to power. I usually hold it down until I see LED feedback, and there it is. It's blinking 2 times now. If I wanted to go to 3, I'd repeat the process. Now we're at ID 3. Alright, so before jumping to the Gen 2 remote node, I want to point out a few things. We have a power lug, we have a ground lug, we have a yellow data wire, and we're using the white-black to advance ID. The data wire is always in position 15, and the ID wire is always in position 14. Alright, let's go ahead and switch over to the Gen 2 remote node, and we'll talk a little bit about that one. The main and obvious differences on the Gen 2 remote node is only one power stud. On the Gen 1, we had 2 power stud, one for power, one for ground. Additionally, we have LED light pipes providing feedback for the individual outputs. The footprint of this remote node is slightly different as well, although it will bolt in place of the old one. Now there's a different method for sending the address ID in the Gen 2 node and grounding. We're going to cover all that in a minute. Alright, so we're going to be using the same exact plug to demonstrate how this works. Let me hook this up and we'll get it fired up. Now we're up and running with the Gen 2 remote node, and it's hooked up a little bit differently. The power is hooked up just like in Gen 1. Data is also hooked up just like in Gen 1, but the ground is now hooked up to pin number 14. Depending on the harness you have, pin 14 might have a different wire color associated with it. Gen 1 harnesses will have a white-black wire, and Gen 2 harnesses will have a solid black wire. The reason I wanted to use a Gen 1 harness for this demonstration was to specifically show how you can do a retrofit. So let's talk about how to set the ID on a Gen 2 remote node. Remember, with the Gen 1, we use this wire right here by applying power, but that's not going to work in this case because now it's being used for ground. So the solution is a magnet. Pay attention right here to the little nub right next to the LED lights. That little nub indicates that this whole area is kind of magnetically sensitive. Basically, what we're going to do is take our magnet and put it in that area until you start to see the LED lights to start flashing fast. Then we're going to pull our magnet away and we're going to immediately put it back into place. We'll see them start flashing fast again to indicate we are in programming mode. Let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we're in programming mode now, and we're going to do a quick swipe of the magnet to advance to ID number 2. There you go, now you can see we're at ID number 2. Now it's at ID number 3. One really cool thing about this remote node is you can go backwards in ID. I didn't hold it long enough. Let's do that again. There it is, 3. Let's go back to 2. And back to 1. Okay, let's go forward back to 2 again. Once we have this ID'd, all we have to do is let it sit, and it'll go out of programming mode on its own. Or you can remove power or ground, and that'll force it to finalize as well. So now that you can see the communication LED is steady again, indicating it's out of programming mode, and the address ID is flashing twice, indicating that this remote node is set to ID number 2. That's basically it. It's an easy retrofit. If you had your ground hooked up to that lug before, just cut the ring terminal off of it and butt splice it to the white black wire in pin 14. That's it. All right, cool. That's all I've got for today.